No GPS, no rules, no shame. Just a funky little quad in a soul train frame. We fly that flow. Spread that gap. No time to nap. No time to nap. Hit that roll. Funk and control. Bounce that wall. We fly it all. We fly it all. Funky and free, we fly indoors, we fly with glee. Whoop it, loop it, groove it, move it, bounce it, flip it, funk it, rip it, fly that soul, don't lose control. Tiny whoop love gonna make you whole. I thread the needle through the vinyl stacks, bounce off the mirror ball, never looking back. My quad's got soul, it's got style, it's got sass. It dips through the incense like a blast from the past. I'm flying figure eights through the lava lamp glow, dodging house plants like a funky pro. My whoops got rhythm, my sticks got heat. I'm the pilot of the party with the grooviest beat. I loop through the hallway, I dive by the broom. I'm the disco ghost in your living room. I hit that split that's over grandma's chair. She just claps and says, boy, you got flair. I'm flying freestyle with a velvet touch. My quad so smooth it don't need a clutch. From the shag rug to the ceiling fan, I'm the funky little fly with a master plan. The curtains dancing on the breeze, freestyle funk in my living room with ease. Tiny whoop magic bumping every wall. I'm the James Brown of flight, can't stop at all.
Welcome, friends. My name's Aaron Ciotti. I forgot to hit a whole bunch of buttons and switches. Ha ha ha! Fuck! There we go. That's two of them. Welcome to Sunday Q&A. We're going to be taking a look at binding flies today. And I'm going to show you how to figure out which ones suck and which ones don't. Best way is to go on YouTube and try to find somebody that's reviewed it and crashed it. That's the hard part. Most people don't crash them. So look for somebody flying it hard, right? Look for like a good pilot on YouTube that's going to really like push it super hard. Like look for somebody that's better than you is an easy sort of way to kind of figure that out. Look for a pilot that really rips hard, and they're going to be also, the better the pilot, the better that they can like determine whether or not the tune is good. So that sort of matters as well. That was you were just watching the budget 5-inch build is what that was. 592 grams all up. AMAX Superleggera. What are these? 2305s, I think. So light, these motors. 2305 and a half, 1950 kV motors. Very light motors. Gemfan 4934. Hey. 4937, sorry, 4937 propellers. Cheap electronics in this, and then analog run cam GoPro Session 5, 10 Tattoo R-Line version 1 6S 1050 mAh batteries. 592 grams, all up weight. Glide frame, FPV Cycle glide frame. You can still build light 5-inch rigs that shred, my friends. It's totally doable. 5-inch rigs don't have to be 800,000 grams. I almost said 800 pounds. It is possible to build light 5-inch setups. Those beeps are... there'll be 2 more beeps. Those are the Lava V2 280 mAh batteries. We are going to fly those again today, and we're going to, again, try these new GemFan 1207s. I'm going to try them on a different build this time. I didn't have great luck with them on my main Ultimate Freestyle Tinywhoop on the last live stream, so we're going to try them on a different build today. Let's make that. Nope, we're not, because all the other builds use NX69. Is that real? Is this real life? No. Hey, here we go. I've got a BetaFPV Air 65 race champion edition that we'll try those propellers on. A little bit of a different motor. Yeah, cool. We'll see if I can finish this thing off. Also, this is on an Air V2 frame, so you'll get to see how fast the Air V2 frame is wanging around the room here. I've got a set of, in case somebody wants these before I put them on, Etsy. This is a set of Happy Model 0802 25,000s. Awesome motor for a 1.6-inch 1S build that you're not going to crash super hard constantly. If you want first crack at those before they go on the Etsy store, let me know. CiottiFPV.com is the website where you can get to all of my contact info and support me. There's a link to my Patreon over there. Patreon is the absolute best way that you can support this live stream to keep it going. This is a totally crowdfunded thing, so that when I review stuff, you're not worried about, like, oh, does he just not want Newbie Drone to ever send him anything again because he reviewed something poorly? There's also a bunch of affiliate links over there. Change your bookmarks to someone's affiliate links. Support people that are making stuff that you can watch for free here on YouTube, and they'll keep making stuff for you to watch for free here on YouTube. There's an Etsy store where you can get shirts. Not this one, but other shirts. This is my favorite BQE shirt ever. There's a Fiverr page where you can work one-on-one with me. I'll teach you how to solder the right way. I'll teach you how to build using the right parts. Teach you how to fly better. Teach you how to PID tune, or anything else. You're buying my time. You're buying a half an hour, an hour of my time. I try to give all the info that I possibly can here on the live streams themselves, but it takes a little bit more time to watch a bunch of these. If you want to get all the info fast, buy a half an hour, hour of my time, and you'll cover lots of ground. So I'm using... So I did a little bit of research after last live stream about the memory leak problem that YouTube has that plagues me, and the chat crashes and it makes the computer run like shit. And so what I realized is that OBS has a chat built in, and I'm using it for the first time here. And so we're gonna see if this works. Sign into chat. Let me do this real quick. The only problem is the chat won't pop up until I start live streaming, which is a little bit annoying. But I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. If it makes things run better, that's kind of all that matters. But I have a feeling it's going to have the same sort of issues. But we're going to try it. Complete sign-in using your passkey. Try another way. Enter your password. Yep. All right. Let's see. Let's see how this works. For fuck's sake. Two-step is turned on. Tap yes on your phone or tablet. Yeah. Come on. In theory, once I sign in here, I'll be okay. One notification, that should be... Nope, that ain't it. Where's the... resend it. Come on. Please. Please, Ham. Open the YouTube app on your phone. I'm there. I'm with you, YouTube. Resend it. Wait. Why is everything so difficult? Open the YouTube app, type yes in the prompt. Yeah, there is no prompt. Everything... Can you please... All right, I don't think this is gonna work. I don't think it's gonna let me sign in. I could still see the chat, but it's not gonna let me sign in, I don't think, because everything is impossible. In the chat, the Bruce was first, Andrew Taylor, Eco4458, Uplift FPV, Spaceman Spiff, Nathan Wells, Green Thumb, Adam Verby, Uplift, Capital C, Uriel, Apache Smoke, Wounded Sniper, McShaky, Spaceman Spiff again, Adam Verby again, Bad at Drones, Apache Smoke, Wounded Sniper, BnFPV, Jimmy the Cow, Hendrix Freakazoid, Matrix 42, Levster, Natter FPV, Mupshot, Basilius, Levster, David Penfold, Latrank, Mupshot, Ricardo, Zabluga, Natter FPV with a $5 super chat. He says, good day to you, Ciotti. Thank you, brother, for the support. Good day to you as well. Ricardo is Frank Nicholas, Tamava, Druzin, C2C World News 204, P-Money, Slim, Rennie Toner, Matrix, Levster, Zabluga, Uriel, C2, Chef Bruno, Phil Bradley, Ricardo, El Chingon, Pimp on a Blimp. That's outrageous. Whoop Fox. Did I get everybody? Just a Shy Guy. P-Money. Messmaker. Messmaker's a good screen name. Yamasaur. Angular FPV. I think I got everybody. What's up, friends? If you want to talk directly to me, type at CiottiFPV. You got to get the at in there. Don't put a space in between Ciotti and FPV. Don't put anything after it either. Don't say like at CiottiFPV, comma. Don't put the comma in there. I've broken this OBS chat now. This is madness. Let's open this back up. Yeah, it looks like I can't sign into the OBS chat, which admittedly is annoying, but maybe it's okay. Timestamps on. All right, cool. So I'm going to try this today. Maybe this won't scroll me to the bottom of the chat all the time, too. That'd be absolutely incredible. So I did. It looks like I have lost some of the chat. Everything above, and I think that's because I had to close it and reopen it. So in the future, in theory, that won't happen. But anything above Natter FPV's super chat. Well, no, I guess I can go on here just this one time. Because what I'm going to do is close the YouTube window in my browser. I usually have to leave this YouTube Studio window open. I'm going to close this in hopes that makes that fixes the memory leak issues. Eco says, when do you think you'll update Bardwell's Whoop page? Maybe never. Yeah, I don't think that I'll be updating that anytime soon. So just come to these live streams, ask me all the Whoop questions you've got, and I could totally be wrong, but there's no plans between him and I to do that anytime soon. I'm not the greatest person to work with, and he's super busy. And so, yeah, it's hard to pin me down for stuff. But Jimmy the Cow says, don't forget to wash your hands. I wish I'd had time to take a grumper. Sadly, I did not. Jimmy says, the best bind and flies are the ones that have the best place for water slide stickers. Indeed, they are. Natter, thank you again for the super chat. Okay, so now I can jump off of Well, this is actually great because I'm going to be on this page for the majority of the live stream. So, oh, that's stupid. Oh, I don't know if this is going to work. The chat disappear. Well, look at this bullshit. Look how stupid this is. OBS, are you kidding me? Ready? The chat disappears. That's... Why is everything so shitty? Why can't anything not be a bag of assholes? That's really stupid. Oh, and you know what? When you guys tag me, it doesn't show up in this chat. I can't use the OBS chat. It doesn't oh, that's really stupid. What the hell, dude? That's completely worthless then. Look. It doesn't light up an orange here. And so I yeah, okay. That doesn't work. I'm just going to have to deal with wow, that's insanity. Yeah, I'm just going to have to deal with the memory leak bullshit. I mean, as I always have. You know, that's been a thing with YouTube. I found posts going back 2-3 years with this issue, and there's not really a solution for on Mac. On PC, there seems to be some stuff that you can download to help with it, but not on Mac. It's just, you know, CiottiFication at its finest. Bad at Drone says, I'm interested in the deep space bind and flies. I built a 3-inch on the Seeker3 frame, and it's pretty solid. Great manual, too. So, here's the deal, friends. That's exactly what I want today. Any bind and flies that you're all interested in, will it just keep auto-focusing? Any bind and flies that you're interested in, let me know in the chat. Tag me in the chat, and I'm going to pull it up, and I'm going to try to show you how to figure out if it's a bind and fly that's good or not. By, like, looking at the voltage, the motors, the props. We're going to look at, like, pictures of the frame to try to show you, like, areas that can potentially be weak points. It's 2026. By this point, most bind and flies are actually going to be really good. I should have done this many years ago because most bind and flies, even like 3 years ago, were still kind of shit. But yeah, you know, like I said at the beginning of the live stream, the best way is going to be to find a good pilot here on YouTube that does a proper review of it, flies it hard, crashes it, and hopefully that's somebody that's not like blatantly sponsored by the company of the rig that they're reviewing. All that being said, like, the folks that are getting these things sent to them from companies, I have a hard time, you know, if a company's going to send you a bind and fly, like, it's sending you a lot of money. And so, like, those tend to not be reviewers that then go and hammer on the products. That's all I'll say. Certainly not all of them, but, like, yeah. I hammer on products, and none of these companies really send me bind and flies, other than, like, a couple tiny whoops here and there. Just to give you some sort of perspective. Certainly not all. You know, a review from Joshua Bardwell or Nick Burns, absolute gold. Like, you can absolutely trust those two. Neither one of them care whether or not a company ever sends them another bind and fly. And they're just awesome human beings that, you know, wouldn't betray you by doing that. But yeah, just be careful. Like, understand when you're watching a reviewer that, like, they are potentially relying on these companies to continue to send them stuff to keep their channel going, to, you know, maybe make revenue, maybe not. So just kind of keep that in mind a little bit. It's tough. It's tough to kind of read between the lines on that stuff. But look for somebody that's a good pilot. Look for somebody that's willing to crash it. Look for somebody that, like, knows what a good tune is, right? That kind of stuff. Slim says, what's up? Jimmy the Cow says, let me know what Betaflight font you want. Oh, shit. Sorry, Jimmy. I'm so behind on my email. This year is off to a real rough start. But we're gonna do what we can for as long as we can. Anybody that I haven't gotten back to, I do apologize. I've had a rough last month and a half. This has just been a lot, and I'm trying to get back into it, but it's fucking hard, man. If you ever have a choice in life, like if somebody ever comes up to you, if like God ever comes up to you and he's like, hey, I'll give you like $1 million, but you have to deal with mental illness for the rest of your life. Say no. Say no. It's not worth even $1 million. It's not worth it. It's not worth anything. Levster says, I love your flying style. Thank you, dude. Chef Bruno says, the Darwin Baby Ape 3 Pro took a nice dive from a good 50 to 60 at mid-throttle into the ground. Changed props, took off again, though I doubt it will last through another one. Sounds like it's durable. That's good to know. Let us know if you hammer that thing again. Most frames and motors and builds and stuff, namely frames, will take 1 or 2 really big hits. And then after that, that's when you'll start to see like arms delaminating or breaking. Carbon fiber is really strong that first time you hit it hard. It's a bunch of layers resined together. And so that first really big hit, it'll tend to kind of like bend the arm, and it'll break some of those internal layers, or it'll separate that resin. And then it'll come back, and like a lot of times it won't be bad enough that you really notice it. But that like second, third, fourth hard hit, that's when it starts to kind of just be too much. If you crash a rig hard and it doesn't break anything, be very suspect. That's when, after hard hits, what you want to be doing is put your middle fingers on the motors like this, put your thumbs in the center, and bend it. Bend it like quite a bit. Put some good force into it, and see if you can find one arm, and then rotate it and do it the other way. See if you can find one arm that's bending a little bit more than the others. Because, yeah, carbon fiber tends to do that. Like, it'll hide delaminating. And that's one of the really good ways to find it. The other way to find it is to twist the arms. Grab the motor like this and twist. A lot of times you can feel an arm that's starting to delaminate when you twist it like this, over when you pull them from the center like that. And then, you know, if you have one arm that's a little bit weak, just know that. Like, you can probably keep flying it, but maybe don't fly it somewhere unrecoverable, because if you crash somewhere unrecoverable on that same arm, it's potentially gonna break all the way, right? And so when you can, fix it. Mupshot says, did you get some sun? We don't have any of that up here. Not really. I'm an Italian. Chef Bruno says, never mind, did. I don't rip hard, but them crashes though. LMAO. Levster says, do you have experience with DarwinFPV? I just ordered the Baby Ape 3 Mini. Did you have any quads from that company? I personally haven't, but people that I trust have. And for the money, they're really good. They're not as good as the stuff that costs twice as much, but, you know, what is? So yeah, for the money, Darwin's doing a great job. But they do, and I think the Baby Ape is the perfect example of this. The Baby Ape has those silver motors. Like those motors, for example, those are old school photography drone motors, believe it or not. Those are the motors that were on the very first FPV rig that I got 10 years ago. The Emax Baby Hawk actually had those same silver motors. So they are using, you know, to get the cost down, they're using low cost stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. They apparently fly really good, and that's kind of all that matters. And so if you're going to spend less money and it still flies good, you win. But yeah, for the money, Darwin seems to be really doing a great job, which is awesome. It's great to have less expensive stuff because you can go bash the shit out of it, and if you lose it in a tree, whatever. I lost half as much money in a tree as I would have if I'd bought like an Axisflying, fancy 3-inch rig or whatever. Phil Bradley says, I've got an old Wizard 220, oh my god, from when I started FPV. Would it be worth trying a new flight controller on it? The current one doesn't have an OSD chip. It's that old. Nice. Love the show. As much as I hate to say it, no. The frame, that old Wizard frame, sucks. The ESC sucks. The motors suck. And so, like, if you have an extra flight controller floating around, or if you find a flight controller for cheap, okay, maybe. Because what you can do with it is put it on the wall like this. This was my very first 5-inch build. And at some point, it's got cobwebs on it. Literal cobwebs on it. At some point, and so first 5-inch build, break it, fix it, break it, fix it, break it. At some point when I moved to different frames, I took the motors off of it, and it just like sat in a box. One day, I had an extra 30x30, well, I had a 30x30 AIO that's now in this that I didn't want to use anywhere else. And so I just threw it into this to get it back so that it would fly. And then, like, over the years, I've done that. Like, these are the old school version 1 T-Motor F40 Pros. Yeah, 2400 kV for 4S. And then there's a Rush Tank VTX in this that I didn't want to use anywhere else because it's on MMCX. And then I just happen to have an extra camera, right? And so, like, when you have the old gear that still works, but you're not going to use it anywhere else, you put it into that setup, and then you just fucking put it on the wall, and like once every 3 years, you take it out and you fly it, and you go, oh my god, we've come a long way. And that's what this represents. I just flew this last year, actually. This is also on FR Sky, with the little zip tie antennas here. And it's great for that. It's absolutely fantastic for seeing how far the technology and our ability to tune and build and all that jazz has sort of come. And so, yeah, do that. Do that. But don't buy a $70 flight controller, a brand new $70 flight controller, and waste it on that Wizard, because I guarantee you're going to put that thing on a shelf and it's going to sit there, right? Like you're not going to fly it very much, but it's very cool to have your old ass rigs. This frame, by the way, this is the very first FPV Cycle 5-inch freestyle frame. This is the Flow Ride, and it's an assless frame. It's got nothing in the back for a receiver. So you got to pack everything up here in the front and in the middle. A little bit of a challenging build, but a really neat frame. So yeah, do that, in my opinion. Just wait. Just wait until you have a flight controller that you're not going to use anywhere else, or whatever, an AIO that you're not going to use anywhere else, right? And throw it at that old Wizard 220, and then you can at least fly it. Although it sounds like the flight controller that's in it works, but it just doesn't have OSD. In which case, leave it alone. And when you fly it without OSD, you'll be like, holy shit, OSD is really nice. I can't believe I used to fly around without OSD. Right? Like, to me, that's the point of these old builds. Is that, they're the 1965 Mustang with fucking carburetors, and you're like, holy shit, I never thought I would appreciate fuel injection. Or servo assist power steering, and you're like, oh my god, I electric power steering is so much better if you have a newer car, or regular new school pneumatic, whatever, power steering is good. It's kind of the point. They're you know, that old gear is not good enough to like fly properly or give you good flight footage, but having it exist at all is fun. So that's my recommendation. YouTube just did the thing and scrolled me to the bottom. There we go. Basilia says stock Mobula 8 11,000 kV motors or different motor model. It's weird that you mentioned those motors because I spent the first hour, hopefully not the whole hour, but I spent a long time on Friday's live stream looking for those motors. I had a set of those motors, and I just fucking can't find them. And I really want to use them on this build that is right here, but for the life of me, I cannot fucking find them, and it's still driving me insane. I didn't completely tear this place apart looking for them because somebody in the chat said they think they remember me selling them, and so I actually showed some patience for once in my life. And I did a little bit of searching, but then I stopped and I said, you know what? Someone, hopefully that bought them, will see this live stream and then they'll post in the comments, yo, I bought those off you. Stop looking for them. Unfortunately, nobody's posted that yet. So I'm still kind of waiting. Maybe one of you remembers me selling them. Happy Model 1102, 11,000 kV motors. They're the motors that come with the Mobula 704. I banged one of them up, and then Happy Model sent me a replacement, so I had a full set of them. I have a funny feeling that I did sell them, but it was back before Christmas, and I don't remember a goddamn thing since, you know, December is just like a fucking... My brain becomes an Etch-a-Sketch, and the world becomes a massive seizure. And so, yeah, those are great motors. They are a little bit low kV, though, for anything smaller than 2-inch, or what I was the main reason that I was really hoping I could find those motors is I wanted to put them back on 1.8-inch prop and see how they are with an analog build, which is a little bit lighter. I reviewed when I first got the Mobula 704. I left those motors on it. And I did a flight edit, and I did a couple of live streams about it. So you can go see a bunch of flight footage with those motors on a rig that's that heavy. They were really good. I was really surprised at how good they were on the 1.8-inch props. On a 1.6-inch prop, it's not going to be enough RPM. I can just kind of tell you that. But on a 1.8-inch prop or even a 2-inch propeller, that low KV is going to be fine. That 11,000 KV is going to be totally okay. So yeah, it depends on the rest of the build, Basilius, but that's a good question, and thank you for mentioning those motors so that I can, again, plead for anyone that might for anyone that might remember me selling them or not selling them to tag me and say, yeah, you definitely sold them. Ricardo Pender says, do the Deepspace Seeker3 or 3.5? For me, 3-inch. 3.5-inch doesn't really make sense unless you're trying to pick up like a heavier payload, like that new DJI action camera. If you've got an onboard, here's what it is. If your all-up weight is going to be around 250 grams, 3-inch rig for sure. If your all-up weight is going to be 300 to 350, 3.5-inch rig. The end. Figure out the whole build, total up the weights, and that's what you want. 3.5-inch builds at 250 grams have too much propeller area and not enough weight, and they don't have enough throw. So you go off throttle, you go to throw it up over a tree, you come off the throttle, you flip it upside down, and it doesn't make it over the tree because the propellers are too big. It's too much of an area of prop that's always spinning, always disturbing the air, and not enough weight. And so there's a really that balance is really important. The balance of prop size to all up weight is super important, and it's one of the biggest things that give these things their flight performance, right? Like outside of how they deal with prop wash and stuff like that, you know, when we talk about like the flight performance of a build, a lot of that has to do with that ratio of weight to prop size. It also has to do with how much power it makes. If there's lots of like battery sag, like, so there's other stuff, but yeah, all up weight versus prop size is super important, especially if you're trying to have builds that fly similar to one another. And I know that sounds kind of insane, me holding up a 1.2 inch tinywhoop and a 3 inch, ducted tinywhoop and a 3 inch non-ducted freestyle rig. But believe it or not, I've managed to get most of my shit that's not like a Cinewhoop, right? Like a Cinewhoop is never going to fly like anything other than a Cinewhoop. But like the stuff that I fly freestyle flies very similar to each other. The trick is I'm going to fly this thing inside the house only. I'm going to fly this thing in small to medium-sized spots. I'm going to fly that 5-inch rig that I held up a second ago in medium to large spots. And then I'm going to fly the 7-inch build over here in giant spots, right? Like, the whole point of having all these different builds is that you can have the perfect build for different locations that you fly in. And then with each of those builds, you're going to kind of like tune, sort of, the power of the build to the size of the propellers to the all-up weight, so that you can do the things that you want to do. If I went to do a power loop in this basement, and I don't have enough momentum to carry the distance that I want to carry. So like the giant, what do I call it? The giant power loop, the mega power loop. The mega power loop in this basement. If this build was so light and the props were so big that when I went to do that giant power loop, I could never make it from the wall to the middle of the room, I would either make the rig heavier or make the props smaller. And that's how you're going to kind of like dial these things. That's one of the biggest and best ways to kind of dial these things in. And so that's where that kind of comes from. There are people who fly toothpicks all the time, and they don't throw them inverted up over trees. For those folks, a 3.5-inch rig that's 200 grams all up weight is going to feel great to them because they're used to that. They're used to, and they just don't do that. They don't do stuff that's off throttle, requiring the mass of the build to, keep its momentum going over objects. So this is a super personal kind of thing. When you hear me talk, I spent many years really working my ass off to get good as a pilot, flying primarily 5-inch builds. This was back when micros kind of flew like shit. We're going 7-8 years back now. Micros didn't fly very good. They also didn't have enough power, and frankly, I was too new to understand how important it was to balance the size of the propellers with the all-up weight. But 5-inch rigs were just like dialed, right? Because more people flew 5-inch rigs earlier in the game, and so we had more people there figuring out what flew really good. And so I spent years and years and years flying thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of 5-inch batteries. And so the 5-inch freestyle flight experience at like roughly 600 grams, that is what I then try to get everything else to fly like. There's enough momentum, but there's not too much momentum. It's not like if I fly like an 800 gram 5-inch rig, that's too much. That's actually too fat for that size propeller. I would want, if I was going to fly something 800 grams, I would want it to be on like a 5.5-inch or a 6-inch propeller. And so, yeah, when I give you guys this advice, it's based loosely around how a normal to lightweight 5-inch rig flies. Back in the day, 600 grams was what most 5-inch rigs were. So, like, it's only over the last few years that people have gone bananas and made 5-inch rigs 700, 750, now up to 800 grams. And to be honest, I think I seriously do think that that's too much. Just continuing to make frames thicker and thicker and thicker doesn't make the motors any stronger. And the motors are what fail the most often when you crash. T-Motor is doing a 4mm motor shaft motor right now, which is pretty exciting. But still, yeah. So there you go. Long answer to a short question. Colton says, "Is the Axisflying Manta5 DC bind and fly any good?" We're gonna look at it in a second. Let me get a little bit caught up on chat here, and then we're gonna dive into that. And I'm also gonna take a look at the Deepspace Seeker3 and 3.5. Just a shy guy, 2-inch, 2.5-inch, or 3-inch for a newbie coming from a tinywhoop for outdoors. Really good question. It depends on what outdoor spots that you want to fly it at. For example, if you're... So for much of my FPV life, I've been living in apartments, flying off my deck around the apartment complex parking lot, where there's lots of cars parked. And the name of the game was lightweight. A 250-gram 3-inch rig smashing into a car leaves dents and marks and breaks the windshield. It doesn't smash through the windshield, but it puts what looks like a little rock chip in the windshield. And it leaves a big dent in the roof. Someday I'll take pictures of both of those things on my Mazda 2. Because, yeah, I've done both. So if that's your scenario, you're going to want to be as small and as lightweight as possible. So on this list, 2-inch, hands down. Something like a little baby turtle, 2-inch rig, you can clatter this thing into a car full steam, and it's probably not going to leave a mark at all. It's certainly not going to break the windshield. If you live in a house and you've got a wide open street in front of you, like I do now, with barely any cars on it, you can go to like a 2.5 or a 3-inch rig pretty comfortably, and just, you know, try to never have your direction of travel be straight at those cars, because essentially you always want to plan for the worst, and the worst is it just falls out of the air and starts to tumble, right? This is also know your limits. I've been flying for 10 years. I'm pretty good. And so I can very confidently rail up and down the street in front of this house and not really be a danger. It sounds like you're fairly new. Maybe, I don't know. You said coming from a tinywhoop, and it sounds like the tinywhoop is your only other build, so I'm going to assume that you're sort of new, and I'm going to assume that you're not great at flying yet. I could totally be wrong. But assuming that you're new, smaller is going to be better, because it's not going to hit as hard. You're going to hit stuff. It just comes with learning to fly hard. And so the newer you are, and the more dense the areas that you want to fly are with shit that you don't want to hit, people and cars primarily, right? Smaller is better. Smaller is also going to open up more availabilities for where you can fly. The bigger the build, the more people are going to get angry, and just in general, the more shit that you're not going to be able to hit with it. So, like a 2-inch lightweight build, you can fly that thing damn near everywhere. It's not going to do as well in the wind. It's not going to be able to go as fast, but you can fly more. And like early days in FPV, it's just about flying. Like, you do whatever you have to do to get as much stick time as possible. And smaller stuff is better for that. You know, one of the big things that Joshua and I disagree on is what your first build should be. And neither one of us are wrong. I think it should be something as small as possible so that you can fly it inside the house, you can fly it out in front of the street, you can also go to spots and fly it. The problem with that is small stuff doesn't fly as good and it's harder to build. And so Joshua's on the other side of this. He thinks that the better first rig is going to be like a 5-inch setup, or maybe even a 3-inch setup, but I think he still leans towards a 5-inch setup. Way easier to build, way more parts out there, way easier to fix, and that's a part of what happens, right? In early days, is you smash them up and you have to fix them a lot. The problem with a 5-inch rig is you can't fly it in front of your house unless you're super fancy, right? And you've got like a field in front or behind your house. Most people don't, right? Most people live in suburbia. And so in order to fly a 5-inch build, you're going to have to go somewhere. You're going to have to drive 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes to get there. And that's going to make the amount of flight time that you get drastically less, right? Every single time you want to fly it, you've got to drive to this spot. Well, like, how many batteries do you have, right? You can only fly that number of batteries. The other thing is that like a 5-inch rig in the middle of a field is fairly easy to fly. A tinywhoop inside the house is fucking impossible to fly. But you can take it outside, right? You can take your tinywhoop outside and learn to fly out there. And a tinywhoop in your front yard is similar to like a 5-inch rig in a field. And so there's ways around it. But yeah, there you go. The answer is different for everyone. There is not a blanket answer. For some people, a 3-inch freestyle rig is the perfect first quad. For some people, it's a tinywhoop. For some people, it's a 7-inch rig, right? If you live in the fucking Alps and your only neighbor is 17 miles away, maybe it's a 7-inch rig because you have nothing but space and cool mountains and shit, right? So yeah, that's how you want to make that decision. Put your. For me, it's just right tool for the job. And the job is where you're going to fly. And so that's where most of this is driven for me, is like, where are you going to be flying this? What is the size? What is the danger level? What is there to hit? That's how you should pick, in my opinion. Jimmy the Cow says, Darwin Hulk II waterproof drone. Is it good? I want a saltwater drone. Well, saltwater is going to be really hard on the motor. So our brushless motors are technically waterproof, but saltwater is going to kick the living shit out of them, and there's no way to waterproof the motors. So there really isn't a saltwater drone per se. Like, there's not a drone that you're going to be able to crash into saltwater. If something is properly conformal coated, that's going to protect the electronics from rust. At that point, like, you don't need a waterproof drone. Like, there are these. I'm assuming that the Darwin Hulk II waterproof drone is specifically meant to be waterproof, in that, like, they've encased. And if it's not, there are drones where they're not just regular rigs that are conformal coated. They've gone a step further and like tried to encase the electronics in plastic with grommets and shit like that. That doesn't matter. Like, technically, sure, that makes it more of a saltwater drone than a freshwater drone, and it's all that you can really do. But the motors are going to take such an ass kicking that, like, I don't think that there is an actual saltwater drone. Saltwater is just, salt is just too corrosive and too aggressive. If you're going to go that route, though, as soon as you get that thing, every single time you finish a battery and unplug a battery, you need to douse those motors in fresh water to get that salt water the fuck out of there, because it's going to just eat the bearings and God knows what else in the motors. So the other side of that, right, is you just take a regular drone and you conformal coat it. Well, then it's totally fine for freshwater. So, like, those waterproof drones where they do all that shit to encase it, I don't really understand those. Sure, they're going to make it a little bit better in saltwater, but still, the motors are not saltwater proof. So it's kind of weird. But yeah, there is no such thing as a saltwater drone because the motors are just going to get eaten. So if you don't want to if you just want something to fly over saltwater and God forbid you crash it every once in a while, okay, that's fine. But a lot of people, when a lot of people think of waterproof drones, they think of drones that they can just throw into the water and then take off out of the water and just like recklessly, crash it into the water all the time. It's no, that really doesn't work. And even folks that have done a lot of that get really good at conformal coating, they will tell you that even like it's still like a super danger. Like it's never going to be safe to crash a drone into water and think you can take it back off. Like, so yeah. And even the folks that are really good at conformal coating, they still have pretty high failure rates. So yeah, it's tough. That's tough. Abdul Malik says, what do you think of this 3-inch rate S30 Pro? All right, so we're going to look at that in a second. Matrix says, already too late because I already ordered the Air 65 Freestyle after seeing you with the Racing and Nick Burns comparing them. What would you improve? Wait till you get it. See if you like it. Figure out what you don't like about it. And then that's what you improve. What I improve on builds is going to be totally different than what any of you improve. Everybody has a very specific set of like wants and needs in their mind. And that's fine. You know, I have a very specific space that I fly. I've been flying for many, 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 many years. And so things that I improve are not necessarily going to be what you guys improve. So yeah, Matrix, just get it, start flying it. And then come back and say like, hey, I've been flying this thing. I'm only getting 1:30 runtime, or I'm only getting 2 minutes of runtime. I want more runtime. How do I do that? That's a better question. So yeah, get it and start flying it. Don't update it. Just fly it. Yamasaur says, I find that reviewers that really have a lot of bind and flies just say they're all awesome, but don't really compare them. Yep, that's pretty much it. Okay, I think I'm caught up enough on chat where we can start to look at some of these. So you guys gave me some awesome suggestions already. Thank you for that. Let's see what we can find here on GetFPV. So Deepspace Seeker3. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to make an assumption that you have all figured out what video system you want. I could talk for the rest of the live stream about video systems, so we're just going to take that out of the equation. The long and short of it is that analog is awesome. The picture quality looks like ass, but it breaks up and you visually see when the signal starts to get weak. So if you start to go too far, you will visually see it, and then you can turn around and get it back. If it does go all the way out, it'll come back immediately. There is no digital link that resets or anything like that. Analog is the best way to learn how RF works, which is super valuable. Learning how that our signal can bounce, how it won't, when it won't bounce, and stuff like that. So analog is a great option. It's very inexpensive. You can do something infinitely small and really high performance all the way up to long range 7-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch. Analog is great. HDZero is a little bit better image quality. The gear is going to cost more. The gear tends to run a little bit hot sometimes. The options are a little bit limited. HDZero is mainly for racing. It's not really for freestyle. Walk Snail is shockingly good. It's not going to be affected by any of the weird bands, which is pretty cool. Lots of options. And it works pretty damn good. DJI is as close to bulletproof as we will ever get. God knows if we'll be able to get it, because fascism. If we can get it forever, DJI is kind of the way to go. It is way more expensive. The link is going to be stronger for farther, but then when it gives up, it's gone, and you have no video for like 10 seconds. Maybe it'll never come. Maybe it won't come back at all. So DJI is not necessarily the best to learn on, although it will go farther and resist multipathing better. So with DJI, you can see where you're going better, like almost all the time. But then when it goes, it's gone. It's just the availability and the cost are very high. So there you go. There's the quickest that I can possibly break down the video systems. There is way more nuance to it. But yeah. So we're going to leave video systems out of it here. In fairness, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this today is that one of the only ways to get 04 Pros right now is to buy a bind and fly. So like if you want to get an 04 Pro in the US right now, you legitimately have to buy a bind and fly. I don't know anywhere else that you can get an 04 Pro. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Flywoo, I think, still has them. I think you might... They went out of stock. I don't know if they're in or out of stock. At some point, they will be out of stock, and this will be the only way. For a while now, the only way that we've been able to get 04 Pros has been to buy a bind and fly. And so I had this idea to do this live stream a while ago, and then I forgot about it because that's what I do. I forget about shit. Deepspace Seeker3. All right, so it's not in stock. GetFPV's website is a little bit broken sometimes here. It says like select options, but there are no options. I think it's just out of stock. In theory, it's in stock somewhere though, and so let's keep going. So we've got stack in the middle and then VTX in the rear, fairly standard kind of setup. GPS up here above the camera, kind of interesting. It's not the best spot for it performance-wise, because when you go nose down to fly forward, you're going to have your battery damn near above the GPS. So not the best place for it, but not the worst either. Usually these GPSs, you want to put them on the back of the build here. Putting it on the back of the build, though, when you crash into things, there's a lot more possibility of it to get smashed. Putting it up on the top of the camera here, in theory, the battery is going to be taller enough that it kind of protects it, but it does kind of... If you ran like a 4S 450 mAh battery on this thing, that battery would be pretty low, and then you'd be smashing this thing face first when you hit stuff. So depending on the battery, this could be a decent, safe location or potentially the worst location. But yeah, having it in the back here is not great either. Freestyle rigs that you're going to fly hard, you don't need GPS on. So if you're going to crash this thing, take the GPS off of it. Would be my sort of quick and simple recommendation there. Fairly straight kind of setup here. Nothing crazy looking so far. So this is a 3-inch rig. Roughly it's going to be 250 grams or so all up. They're calling that out. And so we want at least a 1404 motor. It looks like they've got 1505 motors on it. That's great. One of the biggest problems that we used to have with bind and flies is that the manufacturers, it felt like they didn't have anybody working for them that actually flew. And so almost all bind and flies used to have motors that were way too small and way too low of a KV, and they just didn't have a decent power to weight ratio. They've really gotten their shit together in that respect. Most of them now have motors that are big enough. In a lot of cases, they're still a little bit too low of a KV, but at least the motor is big enough, which is a massive step forward. It looks like, so they're saying no jello, which a lot of times what that means is they've got some sort of a soft mount setup here. Sometimes the soft mount camera setups will actually create jello. This doesn't look like a super soft mounted setup though. What they're showing here is that you can adjust the up tilt. The fact that this is like an oval and this is a circle, this more says to me that you can adjust the up tilt. This does not look like one of these camera cages that have a super soft mounted kind of setup, and that's a good thing. So yeah, that's a weird caption for that. Instead of saying no jello, that should say adjustable up tilt, but whatever. What else can we figure out here? Again, this is not necessarily me telling you like, hey, buy this rig. This is me saying, look, when you're looking at these bind and flies, here are things that you want to look for. Hopefully I'll come up with some stuff that's like bad, that if you see it you want to stay away from. These are just the specs of the 04 Pro camera. This is silly. This is actually kind of a big deal. What they're showing here is that they've set the camera cage up in a way that the camera cage is not in view, which is actually a kind of a big deal. There are a bunch of frames out there that if you put the 04 Pro in, there's standoff or top plate in view, and that kind of sucks. So this is pretty cool. This is actually a really good thing that they're specifically calling this out. They're drawing the circles here of the propellers to also show you that there shouldn't be any propeller in view. I would go on YouTube and look for some flight footage from this thing, though, because you got to swing the front props pretty far back, which they have. Okay, so here's something that's actually really important. If you want a setup that's going to have an 04 Pro with no prop in view, if you look at the center, this is the perfect image of this thing. If you look at the center line of the tops of the front motors, it has to be behind where the camera is sitting. This is the only way to have no propeller in view whatsoever. If these motors were a little bit farther forward so that the center line of the motor was even with the front cage, there would be a little bit of propeller in view. If the motors were swept farther, even more, like on my frame, where the center line of the motors is in front of the camera, you're going to have even more propeller in view. Some people don't mind if there's propeller in view. Some people do. Just understand that. The reason why, one of the reasons why on my frame I've done it this way, where the motors are swept farther, is to protect the camera. This frame was designed to be like a hardcore basher, like super freestyle frame, and so we're moving the motors forward so that if I smash into something, hopefully the nice strong arms hit that before the really fragile camera. This Deepspace Seeker3, the camera cage is the farthest forward point. So if you smash into something flat, it's going to smash that camera cage. And a lot of times that will take the camera with it. Sometimes if the camera cage is strong enough, there'll be enough clearance and it won't take the camera with it. But it's tough. So this Deepspace Seeker3 is not a setup that I would fly like super hardcore with. I would not bash this into stuff all the time. This would be more of like a cruising, or just don't hammer the shit out of it, right? Like there are certain frames and certain setups that are very well protected that you can fly like you don't care about them and just hammer the shit out of them. There are other setups that you don't want to fly like that. That's okay. But just understand that when these motors are swept back like this, and when they say stuff like, you know, wide unobstructed view, and they show you this, it's easy to look at this and be like, oh, well, why wouldn't I want that? This is why you wouldn't want that. This rig is not going to crash nearly as well as a rig that has propellers in view, because when there are propellers in view, that means the arms are swept forward. That is when propellers become in view, is when the motors and arms are swept forward, and that makes them crash better. It also, you get a better center of gravity with that. You know, this setup here, this is going to have a great CG, because we've got the center section pretty much perfectly centered in with the motors themselves. If I were to sweep these front arms back, we've got more frame up in front, and so the CG is going to be farther forward. The flight firmware and the power systems are good enough where that doesn't matter nearly as much as it used to, but it still does matter a little bit. So there's pluses and minuses to everything. CNC aluminum alloy side plates protects the lens, being aesthetic and durable. So you can see, like this, you slam this thing into something hard, and like, yeah, all right, you might get one, maybe two hits out of these side plates, but then you're going to need to be replacing them. Maybe not, though. I mean, especially if you've got an ND filter on here, that ND filter might be thicker than these side plates. So that's, you know, again, this does not strike me as a super basher kind of rig. Motors, 1505, great size, 4,000 kV. A little bit on the lower side. I for a 3-inch build, I like to see 4,500 kV, but this is pretty good. This motor is going to perform really, really well here. It's got black box. That's fantastic. XT30, that's fine. Comes with HQT 3x3x3 propellers. These are okay. They're a little fragile, but they're well balanced, so that's good. Wheelbase doesn't really matter. 04 Pro, great. ELRS, awesome. Get away from crossfire as soon as you can. ELRS beats it in every way. Approximate weight, 175 grams. That's about right. Recommended battery. 4S, 650 to 1100. Quite the range. I like builds like these on 4S 850s. That's about it. The other thing that I wish I could do, I wish there was a shot of the bottom plate, because you can take a look at the bottom plate and you can just look for areas where the frame might be a little bit weak. Let's see what I can do here. Here we go. Well, this is the 3.5, but I'm just going to use this as an example for you. Thank God for Oscar. Right. Where was that picture? So this is the 3.5. Okay, so these side plates, do not ever run these. These are awful. These kill yaw performance, and they're just bad. Never run these side plates. Bad, bad, bad. Bad, 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 bad. Dead weight. Oh, that's really cool. They put the beeper in the middle there. That's pretty slick. I actually like that. You don't really need a beeper because you can just use the motors as your beeper, but that's really slick. All right, so taking a quick look at this. One of the things that we can see here, again, this is the 3.5, not the 3.0, but it's probably pretty similar. One of the things we can see is that this is a split base plate design, which I really like. This is the rear part of the base plate here, and then up here is the front part. So you've got the rear part of the base plate, you've got your arms, and then you've got the front, I'm sorry, it's the other way around. You've got the front part of the base plate down as low as possible, you've got your arms, and then you've got the rear part of the base plate. I really prefer that design because it gives you more space, for more vertical space for your camera. Sometimes the cameras are pretty tall, and so with the split base plate design, you get more room up front, more vertical room up front for the camera, and then you get less room in the back. You don't really need the room in the back. You're only going to stack 1 or 2 boards up. So it's cool that this is a split base plate. But the other thing I'm looking at is the distance between the holes. Well, another quick thing. See the carbon fiber on the arms here? See the direction of the weave? This is really important. This weave, carbon fiber runs north, south, east, west. You can see that here. East, west, north, south. You need to have the carbon fiber strands running the length of the arm. This is the correct way to do it. If this was rotated 45 degrees, these arms would be weak as hell. Unfortunately, there still are manufacturers that do that. It's a total deal breaker. This is what the carbon fiber weave needs to look like on the arms. If it doesn't look like this, where one set of the strands are running the length of the arm, stay away from it. And so on the base plate, also this is a removable arm setup, which is great because that allows you to have the carbon fiber weave on the arms going the length of the arm, and then on the base plate, the weave is going north, south, east, west. The base plate you want to be strong north, south, east, west. The arms you want to be strong basically at these 45 degree angles, right? And so having removable arms is the best scenario because your base plate can be north, south, east, west, and it's strong in those directions that it wants to be the most strong in. And then your arms off here at the 45s, they can also be strong because they've got the carbon fiber going the length of the arm. Does that make sense? So those are a couple of things that are super important, actually. Most frames by this point are designed properly in this aspect, but unbelievably some still aren't. And then the other thing is just look at these holes that are in the carbon and make sure that there's enough meat around the hole and there's not 2 holes that are right next to each other. They've got a nice big gap in between this and this and this and this and this and this, right? They're maintaining a good amount of carbon fiber in between each one of these holes, what carbon fiber, I mean everything, loves to do is if you have a bunch of holes too close to each other, it'll break right along those, right? It'll just draw a straight line in between those weak points. It looks like they've done a pretty good job. The only one that worries me a little bit is this one here. It's pretty close, but this is actually not a stress point. Most of the stress from crashes is going to come through the arm, and it's going to be around here. And so this is the area here where you really want to be careful of having screw holes right next to one another, or a screw hole that's too close to the edge of the carbon. But this looks like it's just about enough. This should be totally fine here. Again, up here, these guys are getting a little bit close on the corner here, but again, this is not... Yeah, so like this is not going to break in this... how do I say this? You have to kind of think about where the energy is going to come from in crashes. And so, like, the majority of the time, energy is going to come up through the arm like this, and it's going to try to fold the arm up or fold the arm down. So when you look at the plate design, you got to kind of like visualize that, like where is that force going to try to spread out. That screw hole there, it's just not in a spot. So typically you'll get a lot of force here. You're also going to get force from hitting the chin. And that's going to be force up this way, so that's going to try to fold the front. Where that screw hole is, where this thinnest part is, that would require you to like bend the front part at a diagonal, and it's just not going to happen. Like you're not going to hit like that, maybe ever. And so I'm not really concerned about this here. This is knowledge that I've gotten from 10 years of smashing these things and looking at where they break and how they break, and just repetition. This is a spot that it's kind of safe to have not quite as much meat as you would normally want around that screw hole. So yeah, there's no like red flags for this particular frame. Again, back here, this is pretty close, but that's not really a spot that's going to get a lot of force. The ass, that's actually the nose of the frame here. This, again, you're going to try to break the nose of the frame like that. In between these screws, we've got a ton of carbon fiber. So this is going to be pretty strong up here. So this is not a frame that I'm worried about. There, you can see a little bit better. What is that? Are they mounting the GPS down underneath? That's not a great place for it. Maybe that's not the GPS, though. What the hell is that? This is the nose of the frame up here on the top. I don't know what that... Oh, that's a little pocket for the receiver, I'll bet. That's pretty cool. That's a neat idea. In some molded plastic on the bottom? Huh. I don't know why you would do that, but it's cool, regardless. If you've got access to molding plastic. Eh, look at that. There it is. Sure enough. Yeah, fair enough. I would just put it inside the carbon fiber frame, but, you know, whatever. So there you go. It looks like this is the 3.5-inch version. Let's take a quick look at what motors it's got. Motors are... Jesus, that's a lot of motor. 2006. 2550 kV. Jesus. That is a lot of motor. That is a big motor. That is enough motor that this thing could pretty comfortably carry an action cam. Not like a 5-inch rig, but from a power standpoint, yeah, this could definitely carry a lighter action camera. The problem's going to be it doesn't have enough prop surface area. So, like, sure, it can carry that action camera, but you're not going to want to fly it like hard freestyle with it because it's got little props and the action camera is going to make it really heavy. And so when you come off the throttle, it's going to fall out of the sky like a sack of hammers. And so, sure, if you want to throw the action camera on and get some really cool cinematic footage with it, right side up, you know, just cruising around, awesome. And that's cool to be able to do that with a freestyle rig. But then when you fly this thing hard freestyle, you're going to take that action camera off of it so that you have a good ratio of all up weight to prop size. Make sense? All right. So that's the that's the Deepspace Seeker. Colton asked about the Axisflying Manta5 DC, which I've heard really good things about. Let's take a look. Cool. It's on GetFPV. All right, so now you're starting to see this is a more freestyle-centric build. We've got the center line of the front motors here in front of the camera cage. So you're going to have a little bit of prop in view, but you're going to be able to smash this thing without demolishing the camera, which is awesome. Jesus Christ, look at the size of the battery that they've got on there. Good lord. That's just a CAD drawing, but my God. Ooh, big motors. Is this a 3.5? What? Okay, these motors are a little big, man. This is a 2004 motor. They're showing it with a GoPro action camera mount on the front. And so a motor this big, sure. This 2004 motor, this is basically what I have on my Cinewhoops to be able to carry a GoPro Hero. Obviously not freestyle, but it looks like they've gone with a giant motor so that you can carry the action camera on here. If you want, if you fly this thing freestyle though, again, you're not going to want to do it with the action cam because these props are way too small. It's not going to feel good freestyle with all that weight on it. But you can certainly fly it cinematic. The problem's going to be with motors this big, when you take that action camera off of it, it's just like it's under-propped and over-motored. Having too big of a motor all the way out on the end of the arm is not a great thing for like how quick the thing can move around, right? Like when we roll, when we pitch, and when we yaw, the motors have to travel the maximum possible distance. And so the weight of the motors has a lot to do with how quick and how like reactive this thing can move around on those axes, on those 3 axes. So long story short, you always want the lightest weight motor possible. It makes a legitimate difference. Also, like when it dips down into prop wash, the weight of the motors is how much momentum it has on each side. So a heavy motor is literally going to be harder to kill prop wash with. The problem with that statement in itself, though, is that if the motors are too small and too light, they don't make enough power or they overheat. And if that's the scenario in prop wash, they're going to perform really poorly as well. So you don't want your motors to be too big. You also don't want them to be too small. What I can tell you is that for like a 250 gram 3-inch build, 1404, 1405, 1505, that's it. That's the size that you want to be. If you go bigger than that or smaller than that, you're going to start to lose performance. All right? If given the choice, you want to be bigger, as we all know. Top plate 2 millimeters, that's fine. Bottom plate 2 millimeters, I don't love that. I usually want to see the bottom plate be a half to a full millimeter thicker than the top plate. It really does depend, though, how the rest of the frame is designed. So that's kind of a tough one, but that's a little bit of a alarm bell for me. It looks like they are using like CNC aluminum front camera cage setup, which does help that situation sometimes quite a bit. So yeah, I don't love that. I would rather this front bottom plate be 3 millimeters. It doesn't add a lot of weight, but we're probably okay here. Also, when you're looking at these images, always keep in mind that a lot of times lately, unfortunately, these are just CAD images. And so if the carbon fiber is going the wrong direction, sometimes it's just because it's a CAD image. Try to find a real picture of these frames and actually look at the carbon fiber weave. In this case, this is a CAD image, but they've got somebody, their graphic designer understands how important it is to have the carbon fiber weave showing going in the correct direction, which is actually a really good thing. It means that, you know, the more people working for these companies that actually understand some of this stuff, the better. You know? This thing looks okay. No huge... I hate the way that this... this battery lead comes out here. This is a recipe for when you nose this thing in and crash it, the battery is going to slam into that wire and potentially cut the wire between the carbon. So this is a terrible way of mounting your battery lead. You can just pop the top plate off and fix that though. So like whatever. You might need to desolder and put a different lead on that's a little bit longer. It depends on how the AIO is sitting in there. But yeah, for the record, if you have a rig like this, fix it. If you plan on crashing it. If you don't crash it, you might be okay, but you're going to crash it at some point. And this is just a recipe for disaster. I never, ever, ever want the battery lead inside of carbon fiber. That is a terrible idea. Carbon fiber is conductive. You crash that thing, even if it doesn't cut through the cable, if it easily cuts through that silicone, you've now got wide open 6S or 4S voltage flowing through the frame. It's going to explode and catch on fire. It's just a terrible setup. Yeah, looks pretty good. Fix that wire mounting. Don't run these side plates. It looks like it's going to come with side plates. Don't run those. Throw them in the goddamn river. And yeah, again, these motors are a little bit big, but I'd rather have slightly bigger motors than too small. Darwin Hulk II waterproof drone. I did want to look at that. Oh, come on now. It is they are specifically saying waterproof drone. I had a feeling. Ooh, Darwin's website sucks. Come on now. All right. Well, I'll try to open it in another tab and we will move on. Maybe their website will start working at some point here. It doesn't look like it's anywhere else. Oh, here it is on AliExpress. Okay, cool. So Darwin's website doesn't work. That's not a great sign. Oh, okay. You got some balls selling something called a waterproof drone that just has 2 fucking pool noodles strapped to it. You know what? Fuck it. Good for you, dog. I mean, they do have the motors mounted upside down, so, like, okay, fair enough. But that's pretty ballsy, specifically calling it a waterproof drone, but it doesn't have any of the, like, every other waterproof drone I've ever seen has the electronics encased in plastic with some grommets for where the wires come out. This is the least waterproof drone I think I've ever seen. But like I talked about before, like in fairness, it doesn't really do much, if anything, to encase the electronics in plastic. What it certainly does do is it gets the electronics good and hot, so it's going to fly a lot worse and potentially cook the ESC a lot sooner. So I would actually argue that this is a better setup for a waterproof rig because you just can formal coat it and then it's waterproof. So yeah, the motors are on the bottoms of the arms, which makes living with this thing a bit of a nightmare, right? Like you have to hand launch this with a 5-inch rig is ultra sketchy. So I'm not gonna recommend this. You also can't really, well, I mean, landing it is a lot easier, right? Like you can just hover it low on concrete and then disarm it and let it slam down, and like it's gonna chew up the motor nuts a little bit, but like you literally can't take this off from concrete or grass or anything. You have to, maybe you could like 3D print some sort of a handle or something, but like, yeah, this is gonna suck to take off and land, and like hand launching stuff, especially 5-inch stuff, is just creepy as fuck. Like it's just really, really bad. Like if something nasty happens, like you might not make it to the hospital, right? Because you're hand launching it with your wrist right here, you know? And so like if it comes up into the bottom of your wrist and it gets you wrong, like, you know, you could be that first FPV fatality. So I would so much rather have them put the motors on the top. And I mean, you could probably do this. You could probably just flip these motors to the top and then put these, put the floaties on the bottom. That's how we've all done it. Like, all of us that have flown over water, we take a fucking pool noodle, we cut it down, or a water bottle with air in it, and we just zip tie it to the bottom of the rig, and it's fine. So in theory, you could do this. You could buy this, and then you could do that. Because, yeah, having the motors on the bottom like this, whoo boy, that's scary. I have also had experience with double pool noodles like this versus one pool noodle in the center. Double pool noodles like this massacres efficiency and speed. One single pool noodle down the middle is enough buoyancy, and it is way better to fly. So yeah, I would. This has a couple things not going for it that are a little bit scary. But you know, what do I know? For me, a waterproof drone is just a 5-inch rig with cut down pool noodles zip tied to the bottom of it, or if you're in a pinch, a 1 liter or like 3/4 of a liter water bottle or soda bottle zip tied to the bottom, and then conformal coating. Right, get the good stuff. Get the MG Chemicals proper 419D acrylic conformal coating, and understand that conformal coating prevents electricity from passing through it. So if you get that conformal coating inside of your ESC to flight controller plug header, your ESC or flight controller are done. You're not going to get it out of there. If there's a bind button somewhere and you get conformal coating inside of that bind button, you're never hitting that bind button again. If there's a DFU button on your flight controller, you're never hitting that DF. So just really understand that if you're not careful with the conformal coating, you can fuck up a flight controller or a receiver or whatever. A lot of these electronics come conformal coated. If you get, so here's an example of one that's not conformal coated, actually. See how it's matte? See how nothing is really shiny on there? This is not conformal coated. I assumed that, I'll be damned. I assumed that 04 lights were conformal coated. It's just shiny. If the electronic components are shiny, they're conformal coated. They'll as like a last step, the more expensive electronics, as a last step in manufacturing, they will dip them in some sort of a silicon conformal coating, and they'll be shiny. And so if you have electronics that are shiny, they may very well already be conformal coated. I have flown in rain a bunch of times, and I've yet to have something fall out of the sky. I've crashed in water countless times. A bunch of times on these live streams, and you get the battery unplugged as quickly as possible. Technically, you're supposed to unplug the battery underwater. I never remember. I always realize it's in the water and just sprint as fast as I can, get it out, just unplug the battery as quick as I can. And I think I've only ever lost one thing. I think I've only ever lost one AIO. It was on the stream. I think it was an Air 65. It was, I was reviewing an Air 65. It was they just sent it to me. It was like the second battery that I flew on it, and I crashed it into the dog's water bowl, and it didn't come back to life. But I think that's the only one that it's ever happened. So the waterproof thing is like yeah, these are mainly waterproof as it is, but as soon as water gets introduced into the equation, like you're rolling the dice, it could, one raindrop could fall in the exact wrong spot and it's game over. So yeah, the waterproof thing is tough. Salt water though, salt water is going to just demolish everything. So to me, nothing is ever going to be salt waterproof. Abdul says, what do you think of the 3-inch Rate S30 Pro? YouTube, what the fuck? Why can't I highlight text? What? Okay. YouTube is more than likely memory leaking like... Hey! It crashed. Perfect timing, you idiots. Alright, let me restart this. Absolutely incredible that this problem has been around for at least 3 years, and they just don't seem to care about it. Actually, not incredible at all. Disappointing. That's what I'll say. Disappointing that YouTube doesn't care more. God damn it. I lost all the chat before 417. God, fuck you, YouTube. Really? Like, come on. I'm sorry, guys. Anybody that commented anything before 420, the weed number, I can't see it anymore. Feel free to tag me again and ask your question again. I'm sorry, guys. That sucks. Render says you should buy a Caillou Mini. I would love to, but they're never in stock. Everything Simplified says, what could be the reason for core overheating on X12 with RC and power 702 30,000s even at idle? GEP RC 1002 25,000, everything is okay. Same rig, just motor swap. Either the motors are banged up and they're vibrating, which could totally be the case. The RC and power motors use slightly thinner motor shafts, and the RC and power motors have been the most fragile for me. So either the motor shafts are bent up, and so there's just lots of vibrations going on, or the PID loop is overactive because of the KV. The RC and power 0702, even though it says it's 30,000 KV, it's actually like way higher than that. And so, yeah, back your PIDs off. Do this. Just grab your master multiplier and move it down. Like if it's at 1.0, move it to 0.8. See if it gets better. Move it to 0.6. See if it gets better. This is going to rule out it being a PID problem. PID loop being overactive problem, basically. So do that first. Striker says, to me, all of these binded flies just have too many, sometimes fatal flaws. The only truly perfect quad is going to be a built one. Yeah, that used to be the case, but the binded flies nowadays are shockingly good. Most people can find a binded fly that's probably about 95% perfect for them. To get that extra 5%, you have to think about how you fly, where you fly, how hard you crash, what you crash into, all of these things that... when you go to my Fiverr page and you book me for a build planning session, these are all the questions that I ask you to figure out, you know, how strong of a frame you need, which motors you need, which, you know, what runtime are you looking for, what power to weight ratio you're looking for, right? There's all these questions, and those are the things that get you that last like 5, maybe 10%. But most people fly somewhat similar, and so for like most people looking for just a good solid freestyle rig, there are an awful lot of binding flies that do a really good job. So yeah, I've been really blown away at how good some of these pre-builds fly nowadays. Letrank says the iFlight AOS 3.5 V5 4S HD is a decent 3 to 3.5 inch binding fly. Let's take a look. Oh, yeah, right. Well, sure. It's based on an AOS frame. I forget that that there are bind and fly AOS builds. So yeah, the AOS frames are Chris Rosser's frames. They are beautifully engineered. The only issue with like the first and second gen of the AOS frames was that they were a little bit hard to live with. Like just taking them apart, there was a lot that went into it. So it was annoying to crash it a lot and have to fix it all the time. But they've gotten a lot better, and so like nowadays the current gen of them is a lot easier to live with. Yeah, I mean the frame is going to be awesome here. It's a 3.5-inch rig, and so I'm going to want to see a little bit bigger motors than this. These are Zing 1504 3100s. This KV is a little bit low as well. This KV is going to kind of lock you into 6S, which doesn't make a lot of sense for a 3-inch build. It's just going to be really hard on the ESC. So I'm not in love with these motors. These motors are going to be much better for the stator size. 1504 is going to be really good for a 3-inch rig. It'll totally work on a 3.5-inch rig, but you're not going to be able to run like big pitchy 3.5-inch propellers. The KV is what really kind of bothers me. They're probably just advertising this as 6S. I'm going to assume. No, I say 4S. That's weird. Oh, because it's on a... I'm sorry. It's on a 3.5-inch propeller, not a 3-inch propeller. So 3100 kV is still a little bit low for that. The fact that it's a 3.5-inch build, it's going to be all right. But I would still want to see like maybe 3600 kV, maybe even like 4000 kV. What that does is it gives you the option of running lower pitch or even 3-inch propellers. If you were to put 3-inch propellers on this and run it on 4S at 3100 kV, it's not going to make shit for power. And so like you're locked into 3.5-inch props. You're not going to be able to really run like a 3.5-inch bi-blade because it just doesn't have enough RPM. So if this had like 4000 kV 1504s, it would be awesome. And what's annoying is Zing used to make those. Zing used to make 1504s in 4000 kV. They were some of my favorite motors ever, and they stopped making them. So that kind of sucks. But on a 3.5-inch tri-blade, this is going to make plenty of power. Not like mega power, but it'll still be really good. The frame is going to be awesome. The electronic setup looks fairly standard. It is on an AIO, which a setup like this where you have enough space in the front here for a separate 20x20 ESC and flight controller, I would personally much rather it have that. It's really no extra work to build. You just have to plug the flight controller into the ESC, right? There's no like extra soldering per se. And if the ESC blows up, you just replace the ESC. If the flight controller blows up, you just replace the flight controller, right? You save quite a bit of money. And it also flies better with the gyro on the flight controller that doesn't have all of the like high voltage ESC shit on it. There's less electrical noise. And then also having the gyro on a board that just has a couple of 30 gauge wires coming off of it. That's a board that's going to be much less kind of like held down. The AIOs have the battery leads, the motor leads, and all the other wires on them. So an AIO is literally being like held in place by all of these wires. And then we soft mount the board, right? The theory behind it is you've got your gyro, which senses all the motion. And then we soft mount where the gyro is, because the quad is always going to vibrate, right? Like the motors and propellers, those are vibration machines. And so there's always vibrations. But we want to soft mount the board that the gyro is on so that all these vibrations can happen, but then those soft mounts absorb that. So this will vibrate like crazy, but then the gyro can get a nice clean signal. Well, with an AIO, you're putting all this shit onto that board where the gyro lives, and so it's not going to soft mount as cleanly, and so it's going to vibrate more, and that's just more garbage for the PID loop to have to deal with. You got to focus more on your filters, and you know, you can't run as aggressive of a PID loop. Shit like that. The AIOs have come a long way. They used to be a mess. Now they're totally flyable, but they will never perform as good as a separate 20x20 flight controller and ESC. A build like this with a big gaping hole here above the AIO, right? Like, it would make more sense to do a 20x20 stack in there. I know why they're not doing it. Also, like, is there a side shot of this? Some builds, okay, here. Some builds don't have this nice center area here for you to put your receiver in. This one does. So, like, this build really screams to me, like, why the hell is there not a 20x20 stack here? But, yeah, on certain frames, they're running these AIOs so that they can put the receiver on top, because these digital VTXs are massive in the rear, and they take up all the space in the rear of the frame, and you don't have any spot above this VTX to put your receiver. But, you know, this frame, if I was to build, I am actually going to build an AOS 3.5 Cinna at some point here before my live broadcast events start back up again. And when I do my build, I will have a 20x20 stack in here, and the receiver in the middle, and then the VTX in the back. But, you know, this bind and fly, wow. Whoa. Okay. That's a lot. That's a lot of money. I mean, the 04 Pro is what, $250 though? So $654, $440. So they're charging, wowee, they're charging $440 for a set of motors, a frame, an AIO, and a receiver. That feels like it's a bit much. The AIOs are $100 and something now, so $440 down to, like, let's say $320. Motors are $100, $220. Frames $100. $120. So like $120 is covering the receiver and their work, their time and effort to build the thing for you. That's a bit much. This is a premium setup though. This is one of the best frames out there. Motors are a little too low of a KV, but I mean, they'll be all right. AIO is iFlight Blitz. AIO might be okay. I don't know. I've heard mixed reviews of iFlight stuff. I've had okay luck with iFlight stuff. That's a lot of money though. $690. Woo! That's an awful lot of money. Uriel says, how many sold? I'm not sure what that's in reference to. Capital C says, not sure if anyone has mentioned it, but Pyrodrone has the Caillou Mini on pre-order again. Very cool. I've got a couple of 2.5-inch baby turtles on the way. So at some point, if the Caillou Mini is actually in stock and I'm doing an order, I might snag one. But look, the baby turtles you can buy right now, and I can almost guarantee you that there's not going to be enough of a difference between the baby turtle and the Caillou Mini to justify all the insanity of trying to get your hands on one. You know, it doesn't have removable arms. If it did, it would be a different story, but it's a solid base plate. It's yeah. Baby turtle 2.5-inch. I'll bet you it's just as good as the Caillou Mini. Could be better. You don't know. Mupshot says, look at the air. Look at the air on that Hulk. It's encased, at least V1 was. Oh, interesting. Dave's 3016 says water launch only. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, good call. Right. The Hulk 2 waterproof drone they want you to put it in the water to launch it. That's sketchy, dude. I don't know about that, man. Look, you're going to be on a boat. So you're going to have a flat surface to launch from. I don't know about that, man. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Flying over water is a bad idea regardless. Don't do it. Uriel says, order it. Make a video when you put it in the water and ask another one. Maybe I do. I wish, man. Doing what you love doesn't typically pay enough to just be buying shit left and right. And I don't really make hardly any, if any, money from reviewing products. So, yeah. Colton says, another question, is the Flywoo Flylens 75 any good, primarily for freestyle? If it's the rig that I'm thinking about, no, not good for freestyle. Freestyle, you want open prop. Anything with a prop guard, you're just going to break the prop guards over and over and over again. So yeah, this is not a freestyle rig. These rigs are a little confusing to me, because like it's not, I don't know. These make sense in live broadcast, but nobody flies live broadcast. There's like 20 of us on Earth that do that. And so I don't understand this for anyone else. This is a Cinewhoop, like through and through. And so it, like, if you're going to go, like, where this does make sense actually is like if you're going to go downtown. If I was to go to downtown Atlanta and I wanted to get like cool Cinewhoop style shots of like the buildings, like maybe a building dive, something like that, this would be kind of fun for that. But you can't crash this. This is not a rig that you can crash because you're going to break these prop guards damn near every crash, and it's going to get real old taking this thing all the way apart to swap those out. So yeah, freestyle rigs do not have prop guards. Unless it's like a tinywhoop where the frame is just not going to break hardly ever, right? But this is going to annihilate these prop guards. And so yeah, this is a Cinewhoop. So if you want to do Cinewhoop things with it, it'll do it. The props are awful small. This is going to be pretty heavy. You got a lot going on here. And so with a 1.6 inch prop, this is going to be rough. It's going to be pretty loud because of all these obstructions. And it's got a tiny little propeller, so it's going to have to spin the shit out of this propeller, right? So it's going to be real screechy and real high pitched because it's got a lot of weight to pick up with a tiny little propeller. If you were going to do a build like this, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do this size. You want to get up to at least like a 2-inch setup. This thing as a 2-inch is going to be way better in pretty much every way. It's going to be more efficient, more powerful, better flight characteristics, and it's not going to be much bigger. So yeah, be really careful with these tiny little propellered rigs that are like this. Even maybe like 2.5. I would maybe even look for like a 2.5-inch version of this. 2-inch would be absolutely as small as I would ever go on a Cinewhoop setup like this. I would only maybe ever do this if I had like a live broadcast gig where they were really nervous. And I could have something, you know, like really, really little to be like, look how safe this is, right? But a 2-inch setup is going to be fractionally bigger. I can't imagine somebody would look at a 2-inch version of this and be like, that looks unsafe. And then I show them a 1.6-inch version. They'd be like, oh, it's fine then. You know what I mean? But yeah, this is a Cinewhoop. This is absolutely not a freestyle setup in any way, shape, or form. It's going to be a nightmare running that thing freestyle. BnFPV says, I had a DJI Mini Split 2. Why? YouTube, why did you crash again? Yuke says, I had a DJI Mini 2 split my finger while hand catching it. That was before I started FPV, so no hand launching for me. Yeah, don't hand launch stuff. I know it looks cool on Instagram when other people do it, but like if you hand launch stuff enough time, you'll cut your fucking arm off, and it's not worth it. Like, maybe do it. Look, Joshua has a video on hand launching. Watch that video, and maybe do it at least a couple times with something small just to learn the safe way to do it. Because there might be a situation someday somewhere where you kind of have to do it. I've had a bunch of scenarios actually where I've had to do it. Flying in sand, for example. I got flown down to Los Cabos for a gig, and I had to launch and land from the beach, and can't really land in the sand if you want to fly it again before you take it apart and get all the sand out of the motors, right? So I had to hand launch and hand catch. Launching from a boat, you might have to hand launch or hand catch. So like, it's something that in the snow, if you have to launch or land in the snow, you're gonna hand launch. It's a skill that you should know how to do, because it's not just, you don't just do it. like there is a little bit of a process to it, and when you have to do it, you're gonna be like, especially with a 5-inch rig, you're gonna be like, okay, I hope I don't die now. And so, like, it is a thing that you want to sort of learn. There's no reason that you can't learn it with a tinywhoop, though, right? But watch Joshua's video. You have to understand how, like, when you power one of these things up, the accelerometer and the gyro both have to calibrate. And in order for them to calibrate, this thing has to be relatively steady. And so if you're like, oh, the first, you know, if you don't practice and you're out on a boat, or in the snow or in the sand, and you're like, great, I'm gonna hand launch it, and you plug it in, you're like, why won't this fucking thing work? It's because you keep moving it around, right? Like, so there's like a couple simple things that you have to know about the process. So like, figure it out, do it, with something as small as possible, so that you know how to do it, and then don't do it again, because most of the times you don't need to do it, and it is sketchy as shit. Like, hand launching or hand landing a 5-inch rig, like, my finger is fucked for life. It's not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be, but like I could have done way worse damage to this finger 6 months ago. I wasn't hand landing or hand launching, but I fucked up, and a 5.5-inch rig tried to cut my finger off. You know, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Don't hand launch or hand land. Phil Bradley's Mobula 6 has been in the fish tank 4 times and it's still going strong. For the record, when you crash in water, put it in front of moving air as quickly as possible and leave it for 24 hours. A fan, if you're out, put it on the floorboard of your car, put the floor vents on full stank with the air conditioning on. That air conditioner dehumidifies the air. Get it in front of moving airs for 24 hours. Moving air for 24 hours. And don't plug it in. Resist the urge to plug it in to see if it works. Just fucking wait, and it'll probably be fine. You can use silica desiccant. You can use rice. There's all kinds of weird shit. I've always just put them in front of a fan, as close as I can to a fan, and they're good to go. Moving air will dry them out very fast. Really Good Bad Boy says, what do you think of the Evoque V3 with swappable dead cat or XL arms? The Evoque is the 5-inch rig, right? BNF. Yeah, the Evoque I've heard really good things about. There's also like 18 different versions of the Evoque, which is kind of annoying, but it means that iFlight is like making incremental changes to it, which is really good. It's another one of these setups with the camera cage up front. It's very cool. I don't know if this is the exact one that you're talking about, but again, I'm not trying to tell you. There are too many bind and flies for me to go through all of them and be like, buy this one, don't buy this one, buy this one, don't buy this one. What I'm trying to do is educate you guys in a way that you can know when you're looking at a bind and fly if it's going to be good for you. That's what we're trying to do here. So this particular setup, you can see that these motors are swept back. I don't know if these are the dead cat arms, but they might as well be. These motors are swept back behind the front line of this. So this is not going to be good for hammering it, freestyle, crashing it at bandos and shit, because it's going to smash the camera and the front of the frame all to hell. But it is going to keep the props out of view, which is pretty cool. The other thing that happens when you have a setup with the nose pushed out here, even if the camera cage protects the camera, every time you smash this into something, it's going to mangle your top plate, your bottom plate, or your camera cage. And you're going to be replacing either the top plate or the bottom plate or the camera cage all the time. And that's going to get really old really fast. So yeah, when the camera is swept forward like this, that's pretty tough. I absolutely love the idea of frames where you can switch it from dead cat arms to not dead cat arms. This is one of the biggest reasons that I still fly a frame that's like 5 or 6 years old, which is the FPV Cycle Glide frame. This one here is my freestyle version. You can see the arms are swept forward quite a bit. This is with the dead cat front arms. You can see that the nose is out farther than the center line of the arms. The glide frame has like... So the glide frame has 5mm regular 5-inch freestyle arms, 6mm thick regular freestyle arms. Hell, I think Bob even made 4mm thick regular 5-inch arms. 5-inch prop dead cat arms, 5.5-inch prop dead cat arms, 7-inch arms, 7-inch dead cat arms. I don't think there are 7-inch regular freestyle arms. There's a lot of different arms available for the glide frame over the years, so you can really like configure it specifically, and you can just have one frame that you have all kinds of different setups, right? These are two 5-inch setups here. The Cineglide uses the exact same arm design. It's got a totally different center section here with the big old dick nose face setup with the FPV camera down below this, but it uses the exact same arms, which is really cool. All the way up to a 7-inch glide with big long... These are actually 6mm thick 7-inch arms. Bob never made these. I had Ryan Harrell cut these for me. Bob sent me the 3D CAD file for these dead cat 7-inch arms, and then I had Ryan cut them in 1mm thicker carbon fiber. But yeah, having changeable arms like that is amazing. It is criminal that more frame designers don't do that, because most frames you just have to do it. You just have to make the dead cat arms, and away you go. So that's frustrating, but you know, you can FPV lost an Air 65 to a bucket of cleaning water. That's maddening. You would think it would just get cleaner, but instead, it sounds like it died. That sucks. Latrank says you need to look at again at the DarwinFPV stuff. It's actually pretty tech. Check the flight controller ESCs. They're fully potted and waterproof. Price is also pretty good. Wow. Yeah, I've heard really good stuff about Darwin FPV stuff. It seems like it's really well thought out. And I love that they have some less expensive stuff. Uriel says water and electronics are like fire and water. Simple. What? It's an odd comparison. Yuke says I had a DJI Mini 2 oh, okay. So got that. Phil Bradley says my Wi-Fi 6 has been... Oh, we got that. Check got all screwed up. Here we go. Here's where I was. Frank Nicholas says, pick at this bind and fly. Ah, good one, Frank. Good one, Frank. All right. Let's talk about the Eagle. I don't like it. The main thing that I don't like about it is these stupid aluminum things. First off, if you crash this into something with these aluminum, like, what's going to happen? Like, this is going to fuck somebody or something up. You crash this into a car with these big aluminum things, like, it's going to... No. This is... Look, we've figured out that carbon fiber is the correct material for the top and bottom plate. Stop trying to change that. We know that carbon fiber is the right material. Make the top plate out of carbon fiber. This is silly. This feels like they're doing it just for, like, this strikes me as one of these, like, marketing exercises, basically, where it's like, look, it's metal. Metal's better. Buy it. No, I really don't like that these are metal from a... If you hit somebody in the face with this, it's going to suck perspective, or if you hit a car, it's going to suck, but also because I truly don't think that this is the right material. You know, carbon fiber is just better. It's the right stuff. This, you start crashing this thing, this aluminum's going to get all mangled and shit. No, bad. It's also a 1.6 inch propellered rig with a 04 Pro. that's going to be tough. That's an awful lot of weight to be carried around by 1.6-inch propellers. Also, these particular propellers here are no good. If you bought this, take these propellers off immediately. These are an older propeller that's just not. It's not it. For me, in my opinion, the 04 Pro needs to be on a 2-inch rig at absolute minimum. In 1.6-inch, it's not smaller. It's not enough smaller. It's going to be a lot more inefficient because of the smaller propellers. There are a lot less propeller options that are any good. There are basically no propeller options that are good for this setup. There are no 1.6-inch props that are durable enough and well-balanced and pitchy enough. Same thing with 1.8-inch propellers. When you get to 2-inch props, you have the Gemfan 2023 S's, and these are it. This is the first and smallest propeller, not first. This is the smallest propeller that is strong enough from like a what if I crash it perspective, but also, oh my god, I just realized I only have one motor screw in here. Two of these motor screws have backed out of this motor, or I forgot to put them in. I probably didn't forget to put them in. They probably backed out and fell out. I'm glad I saw that before the fucking motor fell off. Hold on, let me back this out. Wow, and there was like one thread engaging on this. This motor was about to fall off. Jesus. All right, I'm going to put this screw in the base of the motor and leave this motor off to remind myself that I need to fix this. So yeah, that much of a payload, you're going to want it on a 2-inch prop. And this is the one. This is the smallest propeller that we have that's actually up to the job of picking up that kind of a payload, being strong enough for you to fly. Look, this is a freestyle rig. You know, like this is a freestyle build here. You got to have a propeller that's going to be able to take a hit, and it's going to have enough power and, you know, to comfortably fly. So I am not a fan of the Eagle. I think this is the second version of it. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you just want the absolute smallest setup that's got the 04 Pro in it, here you go. But it's not going to crash well. It's not going to fly well. And it's not going to be very efficient. So, you know, those are three things that I want. Especially if I'm spending $430, you know? Will this fly? Sure. But it's, you know, solid base plate here with all that weight. It's probably going to break this solid base plate. Why is this... Why can't we see carbon fiber here? Did they paint it? What's that about? It looks like it's bottom mount battery too. When you've got a setup like this, like you might as well top mount the battery for better center of gravity, top to bottom. Look, man, if the most important thing is fitting in your pocket like this, I guess. But like, this is a cinematic rig. This is a rig that you really can't crash. I will admit, I do like that you can put that much up tilt into it, because something with propellers this small, you're going to have to max that up tilt out to get any kind of speed out of it. So that's actually really nice that you can put that much, up to 50 degrees of up tilt in it. The big thing I don't like about this frame is this ridiculous aluminum top plate thing. Like it's just not safe, and it's not going to crash well. That's just going to be a nightmare, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't buy this flight time. 3S 380, 5 minutes and 30 seconds. I mean, maybe like hovering, but like if you fly this with any kind of yeah, I don't know about that, man. The long and short of it is that this is too small. at least go up to a 2-inch build. A 2-inch version of this is only going to be a little bit bigger, right? You're going from 1.6-inch props to 2, so like 0.4 of an inch bigger on the propellers, and that's the diameter. So like really, it's only going to really grow, like, well, no, yeah. So it's 0.4 inches bigger in diameter, but then there's 2 of them, and you do have to push the motors out a little bit more. So like, yeah, okay, a 2-inch version of this is going to be a little bit bigger. But look, like this is a 2-inch build. I mean, you couldn't fit. Well, you could fit. Yeah, it's not going to be that much bigger than this. This is ridiculously small. Like, you don't need anything smaller than this. This is plenty small. That's really what it is. Is that a 2-inch version of this is still going to be hysterically small, and it's going to do everything better. It's going to crash better. It's going to fly better. So, yeah, this is, to me, a marketing exercise of like, we need to sell a bunch of quads. We'll make the smallest 04 Pro quad. Perfect. And then the engineers come back and they're like, yo, this is going to fly like shit, bro. Doesn't matter. It's the smallest one. We got to sell some product here. Fits a GPS. That's pretty cool. It's not really fast enough to need a VTX though, right? Stuff with like tiny little propellers like this, it doesn't go very fast, and thus it won't go very far. So you don't really need a GPS. But I guess if somebody's absolutely brand new and they want position hold and all that nonsense that proper FPV pilots don't need. There we go. It's 5:12. I gotta go teach some folks to partnered couples dance. Let me try to speed run through some of these comments so I don't leave too many unread, but this is pretty much the end of the live stream, to be honest. Frank Nicholas says, WalleFPV is a new company founded by the engineers of GEP-RC and HDLRC. Well, they're not off to a good start with being involved with HDLRC, but I do like GEP-RC, so 1 out of 2 ain't bad. Break Faded says, Air 75 plus vegan, 1.5 shaft, 25,000 kV is the perfect build, bind and fly. The vegan motors are a little bit too low of a kV for me. I prefer the higher kV stuff, like the tree toppers, but not everybody wants or needs as much power as I do. And so to each his or her own, every single one of you is going to have a build that's perfect for you, and it's probably going to be different than the builds that are perfect for me. That's okay. Occult Engineering, that's a fun name. Is 533 built UDL igniter 75mm HDZero whoop too much for a brand new beginner as a first drone? Probably not, because if it is making too much power, you can just motor limit it down. The bigger problem that I have with that as your first drone is that it's HDZero. If you plan on racing, then HDZero is a fair choice. Analog is also totally fair. But HDZero is really specifically only perfect, let's say, for racers. So if you're planning on freestyle versus racing, I would not necessarily tie myself down to HDZero. I would look for analog or walk snail or DJI. Those are much more, those are much better suited for freestyle. So yeah, that's the only thing that I would caution you with there. But 533 builds brilliant setups. The guys working there are amazing. And so anything from 533 is going to be great, but I would just maybe pause on the HDZero part of it, because that's only really for people that are going to be diving into racing. And it's not like a requirement for racing. Analog, I think most people still fly analog for racing. Frank says on the Wally Bind and Fly, looks like the motors are WalleFPV 1002 14,000 from their build docs. That's the right motor for that build, but it's the wrong prop size for that build. Trying to speed run here. License to Drive says, get one of those falconry gloves, perhaps. Yeah, that would work for hand launching. And hand catching, absolutely. That's a really good idea. Whoop Fox says, I got some of the newbie drone light AF 75mm frames, tree toppers, tri-blade, BNF, bi-blades, hummingbird. These things rip. You need one of these frames. What's the frame? Newbie drone light AF 75mm frames. Yeah, I mean, it's not that much lighter, I don't think, than the Module 7 V4. So yeah, I mean, the reason why that rig rips Whoop Fox is the motors. The tree topper motors with 1.6-inch props is a killer combo. You could put that on damn near any 1.6-inch frame and it would absolutely rip. BNF Spade says, how are you liking your Pro Turtle 2-inch? I ended up building one with 04. They're awesome. They're both great. I feel terrible. I robbed the motors off of the analog one for this X14 build. I think I'm actually going to go back down to 1S on this. It feels weird and wrong, but it flew really good on 1S with these 1102 22,000 kV BetaFPV motors. So yeah, I think I'm going to go back down to 1S on this. I'm going to take this AIO out of here, and I'm going to put it into the the analog 2.5-inch build that I have coming, frame that I have coming. So yeah, there's some stuff going on. I might even build this little guy. I found this frame in a box over there. This is a Firefly 1S Nano Baby V2 Dead Cat. I might throw a little setup in here, see what this thing's like. We'll see. I don't know if I have time. Maybe Bed Bath & Beyond? I don't know if I have time. The healthy goat! The healthy goat is the greatest! Man, it's unbelievable how sad he'd gotten. Colton says, is there a good walk snail bind and fly for freestyle that has prop guards? Preferably 2S and 75mm. Probably not. There are not many walk snail bind and flies in general. 75mm, I don't think so. I don't think there are anymore. If you find one, though, and you want my opinion on it, let me know on a future live stream. But I'm speedrunning right now. Angular FPV says, prediction, 2026 will be the year of the Artisan chipset. Yeah, maybe. With many new bind and flies on the horizon, BetaFPV, Aquila 20's new Tiny Hawk of the Hobby, VTX cam is $40. Yeah, hopefully, because a digital system that's decent for cheap like that, that's pretty rad. Slystop says, what do you think of the Axisflying Manta5 SE Dead Cat for cinematic, a little bit of freestyle? Really good. Axisflying makes awesome stuff. Dead Cat is what you want for cinematic. Freestyle, it's going to suck. Just don't crash it, because with the Dead Cat arms, the nose is going to be far forward. You're going to just mangle the top plate, bottom plate camera. So for freestyle, it's going to be like backed off freestyle, like I'm not crashing this today freestyle. For cinematic, it's going to be great. Axisflying makes awesome stuff. And just like that, I'm caught up. Thanks for hanging, friends. CiottiFPV.com if you like this kind of stuff and would like to see it continue. It's hard to do this. And last year was absolutely brutal. Oddly enough, all year last year, the Patreon did this. For some strange reason, all of a sudden, the Patreon is ever so slightly improving and recovering, which is great, because I was starting to get really worried. So yeah, head on over to CiottiFPV.com if you would like this, if you would like to see this continue. It is kind of a shoestring thing, but I am way happier doing this than being tied to a desk, and my mental health is something that I have to be really careful of. So yeah, I would love to keep doing this forever, but got to keep the lights on, keep food in the bottomless pits of children's mouths upstairs. So yeah, support me and I'll keep doing it. We'll keep building cool shit, and I'll tell you what not to buy, save you some money, probably. Send some of that my way. $3 a month will get you onto my Patreon. Makes a huge difference. It's the best way that you can support me. For $5 a month, you automatically get entered into giveaways the first Monday of every month. That's a Tinywhoop and toothpick giveaway. For $10 a month, you're entered in to win Cinewhoop and 3-inch micro brushless parts. For $15 a month, you're entered to win 5-inch parts. For $1 a day, you're entered into all three. Those people win a lot. When you win, it's like $50-$60 worth of stuff. Super worth it. Support your boy, win yourself some shit, and we'll all keep jamming in 2026 together. Thanks for all the support, everybody. You guys have made this possible for the last almost 4 years, and that's super rad. If this ended tomorrow, we would have had an amazing run, and we would have had an actual impact on, you know, the FPV world. Like we've figured a lot of cool shit out, and it's a hell of an accomplishment. So, but like I said, I'd love to keep doing it. So support your boy, and we'll keep hanging out together. Lots of ways, other ways other than Patreon to support me. On CiottiFPV.com. Love you, bye! Here's some more. So at the beginning of the stream, it was 5-inch at Patrick's place. Here comes 3.5, 3-inch build at Patrick's spot. This is a quad mullah frame, but it's a 3-inch rig on like 1505 motors, I think. This is only 48 seconds long. That's not enough. Here we go. Love you, bye! See you guys, what, tomorrow? Today's Sunday? Yeah, see you tomorrow night, 10 o'clock Eastern. Later.
Yeah. Out in the yard where the grass grows wild, CiottiFPV's goggles locked, grinning like a child. Teddy spaghetti's, fur flies, and jet wash dreams, yeah. Chasing small whoops like a dog possessed fiend. Eyes on a neon blur, hard in the chase. Big fuzz and prop spin, all tangled in place, yeah. Four-legged rebel with a rotor stir tail in the circus of the sky. They never fail. CiottiFPV, Teddy spaghetti, dynamic duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling that top speed thing, zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a 2D smile. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sighties on sticks, Teddy's on paws. Side by side, legends breaking all the laws. Through the kitchen, over couch scale terrain. Backyard mayhem in their flight domain. No ground too sacred, no loop too tight. Fuzz, fuel, fury ignites the night. When pilot and pup lock eyes on the prize, every whoop they conquer is a fresh cut surprise. Yeah, yo, Saudi behind the sticks, Teddy's leading the pack. Prop guard missiles unleashed, never looking back. No leash, no map, just freestyle mic. They on the dog drone streets every day and night. Said whoops, hitting low, gotta nail the dive, Teddy. Push throttle up, feel the beast come alive. I see the neon arc, got the sticks locked in, Teddy. Yeah, let's rip this loop, ride the roar of the wind, Teddy. Yep, yeah. CiottiFPV, Teddy spaghetti, diamond and duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling that top speed thing, zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a 2D smile. Teddy spaghetti. Barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed thing, zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a 2D smile. Yeah, when you hear that bar cut the rotor hum, you know Ciotti and Teddy's mission's just begun. FPV's fur-faced legends, legends singing loud. Yeah, Teddy spaghetti and Ciotti FPV.